Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Oscar Cepeda with the city of Porterville. We're going to go ahead and start today's project review committee meeting at 1:33 p.m. For November 8th, 2023. With that, we're going to go ahead and do roll call for city staff. My name Oscar Cepeda, the associate planner with the Community Development Department. We're also joined by Jeff O'Neill, our city planner. We're also joined by Rocio Mejia, our assistant planner. From the Engineering and Project Management Department, we're joined by Javier Sanchez, our Engineering and Project Management Director. With the Fire Department, we're joined by Clayton Dingham, our Fire Marshal. With our Building Division, we're joined by James Wickersham, our Chief Building Official. From Public Works, we're joined by Robert Alvarez, our Field Services Manager. We're also joined by Brianna Spry, our Field Services Refuse Superintendent. We're also joined by Joe Baeza, our Field Services Street Superintendent. And that is all from city staff. With that, at this time, we're going to go ahead and open the meeting for oral communications. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the committee on any matter pertaining to project review.
Is project specific or just general comments from the public?
On any matter pertaining to project review, are you able to answer that, Jeff? Could it be on items only on the agenda? Could it be open for any topics?
If the intent is to discuss something that's on the agenda, then that should probably occur during the discussion of that item. If it's just generally about project review, then it would be right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna wait for our agenda.
Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, we're gonna go ahead and close oral communication. So for today's agenda, we do have two items. The first item, which is PRC 2023-042 for the Burn School District, in which the applicant is proposing the development of a new maintenance operation transition facility for their bus fleet. Let me go ahead and share my screen here for the site plan. The location of the property is currently outside the city limits, but within the city's urban development boundary. Essentially, being our sphere of influence area, in which the development would have to comply with the city's development standards. As far as the subject site, it is pre-zoned residential, pre-zoned very low density residential. The area of the proposed development also has a general plan land use of medium density residential. As far as the proposed use of a bus maintenance facility, the general plan land use would not allow this type of development on the proposed area. Our general plan does have the designation of medium density residential. as far as the proposed use, it would be more in line in a industrial zone. For the proposed, project. Um. So that's pretty much gonna be our preliminary comments from planning as the proposed use. Um. Is not in line with the city's, urban development land use or our preliminary zoning. Um. Would there be any other comments, from our city planner on this project?
No, not right now. We'll see how the meeting proceeds.
Thank you. But as far as the proposed, development itself, if it was in a zoning that could allow this use, planning did not really see any issues with the development itself. The building would possibly meet the, setbacks, again, depending on the zoning. Parking would be, based off the square footage of the buildings, which looks that you would meet that. You would need some landscaping at the end of the parking rows, for example. Again, if there was a way to proceed in a zoning that would allow this type of development.
Got a quick question. So, sounds like right now the city limit doesn't include that area, but is the city able to enforce that zoning on it just because the fact that it's not actually annexed to the city yet?
The property is in our urban development boundary, which requires development to comply with the city's standards. In addition, the project, would require most likely city services. With that, it would require the property to be annexed into the city limits to receive those services.
What if we self-contain all the utilities? Well, not a well, but, cause we have water at the high school that we can bring over. And then we could bring a septic tank and do our own ponding basin.
In addition, just to add to the zoning, the Tulare County, zoning also has it zoned as, AE 20, which, is exclusively zoned for agricultural uses. But then again, the development, because it's in our urban development boundary, it would have to comply with the city's, development standards.
So even if we have our own utilities that we don't need from the city, we still can't use that property for this project.
I think this brings into play a settlement agreement between the city and the county that under which the city is allowed to impose its requirements on projects that are within the UDB. So in order to extend additional, I would imagine, this is a question that we would have to run by the county. In order to approve a septic system, the county would have to ask the city if that was acceptable. In order to extend water service from the existing well to the new site, the county would also have to ask the city if that was acceptable. So then that brings into question engineering and how that would be administered through that department at the city.
Well, the water and everything, it's on our site. It's on our DSA site. So, there's only jurisdiction would be DSA.
Correct. But if you're going to extend it off of a DSA site, then there's another situation that we have to figure out. Because for non-classroom facilities, local zoning and building requirements are imposed, not DSA requirements. And the statute expressly excludes this type of facility from exemption from local requirements. So a standalone facility like this, even if it's next to an existing school site, is still subject to local rules, not state rules, as far as things like zoning and building are concerned. And that can include utilities.
So currently, because it's zone residential, obviously this development is not allowed, but is the city open to doing a zone change for that if the applicant goes through the process?
Yeah, we could, I mean, I guess backing up, the city is not at all opposed to this project. It's obviously necessary for the proper efficiency and function of the school district's operations. So yeah, if the district or the landowner were to propose a general plan amendment and change of zone to something that supported the use, then yeah, I think staff could support that.
Okay. Now, would the zone change be through the city or county just because it's not officially annexed to the city yet?
So because of the interaction of the city and the county within the city's UDB, that's where it gets odd, because you've got two competing, I guess I'll just say two competing local agencies with their general plan and zoning, and then you have the school district, which kind of stands on its own in a lot of regards. Optimally, the site would be annexed to the city, so then it wouldn't really make a difference. But even if you were just to change if you change the county general plan and zoning, they would still refer it back to the city for requirements. So it's probably better to change the city general plan and zoning, and then that's what gets applied anyway.
Okay. Now, earlier I think it was mentioned that this project, if we're to go forward, it would need to be annexed in the city. Is that correct, in order to get services?
Yeah, optimally, that's how that would work.
Okay.
And that in and of
What is the
itself is not a
timeline?
huge issue from the city's perspective.
What's the timeline to do the annexing? If
Realistically, when we're talking about three changes, which would be general plan, zoning, and annexation, the general plan change is probably the thing that would take the longest. Because just on the front end of that, there's a 90-day waiting period for tribal notification. The annexation would be considered by the city council at the same meeting that the general plan amendment is considered. And then that would be forwarded on to Larry Lafco, who could probably take action on it within a couple of months. And because there's you would have no, I guess I'll reverse that. You would have 100% landowner consent. So there wouldn't even need to be a public hearing at LAFCO or a protest hearing or anything like that. It would just go through without any additional, basically, review or analysis. One question is, it relates to CEQA. Has the school district started or completed a CEQA document for this, the construction of this project?
no, not yet. That's so what we're in the process right now. What we're trying to do is that we're trying to get all this information.
Sure.
So that way we don't buy it and then we wait 6 months, 8 months, a year, right? And then we're told we can't do it.
Right. No, that's
So
good.
I don't wanna, I guess I don't wanna do the same thing that happened at, I guess, at the drive-in. This is before my time. I guess there was an issue. They purchased it for some use, and certain things happened where they couldn't build on it. So I'm trying to kind of avoid that
Sure. No, that's
scenario again.
great.
So I'm just trying to make sure that if we do purchase it and we move forward purchasing it, that we're gonna be allowed to build a facility. If, I gotta take this information back to my higher ups and let them know, here, this is the process, these are the timelines. Do you wanna?
So that's, I'm glad you're doing it correctly, not just because it's Burton and the city of Porterville, but just in general, that's the way that these things should go.
Yes, so that's why I'm trying to get ahead of it, and if they, with this information, they say, hey, you know what, I think we're just gonna move in a different direction, and that's what we'll do, or if we wanna continue this path, then we'll continue the path.
Yeah, so I think that the way that it would work best is if it were a kind of a, I don't want to say collaborative effort, but it doesn't take, if you get this comment letter from the city within a couple of weeks as the result of this meeting, and it will have the requirements from the city spelled out in there. And if the district decides it wants to move forward, then optimally, the district will have to prepare a CEQA document to construct its facility.
Correct.
If it simply includes language in there in the space of like a single paragraph, really, that says, oh, we're gonna build this facility, and by the way, the city's gonna change its general plan and zoning, and Tulare LAFCO will annex the property, then that will eliminate the need for the city or LAFCO to do to do their own document for their own processes. And it can come down to basically a paragraph in the school district CEQA document. And that's all that the city and LAFCO would need to rely on to take their actions to move the project forward.
So is it essentially giving the responsibility to the school district to pursue environmental requirements that the city would have taken on if the district did not?
Yes, but because of so here's what would happen. If we did them separately, then the school district would have to do a CEQA document that analyzes all the effects of running this facility and constructing it and so forth. If that's the end of it from the school district's perspective, then what the city has to do is write its own CEQA document as a standalone that addresses the effects of amending the general plan, changing the zoning and initiating an annexation process, which will basically duplicate what the district has already done. And because of how these things work, I mean, the district would be the applicant. The district would have to pay for the city to hire a consultant to do that, to basically repeat what the district already did. So if the one document, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it can be basically an additional paragraph that just says, because the things that the city will undertake, which are the GPA and the rezone, and then that LAFCO does, which is the annexation, by themselves, those don't have any environmental effect. But we have to analyze them as though they do. So if the school district analyzes its actual project, which is the physical change to the environment, and just adds in this little bit of information about other agencies that have to act, then it saves the district time and money on the back end. And again, it's not, I'm just going to make up a number, and I understand I'm on the record. It's probably a few $100s worth of extra work for the district to just include that language, rather than pay several thousands of dollars later to rewrite a new document. So on its simplest, in its simplest terms, yes, the district is doing the city's job, but the district would have to pay for the city to do the city's job later, and it would be much, much more expensive.
And the city needs, or the district would need to do their due diligence on that anyhow, regardless.
And then it would have to provide all that information to the city when the city consultant writes the CEQA document later. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So then in terms of timeline, then in order for if the district proceeded with the property, the only timeline we would consider would be the efforts to complete the CEQA through the consultant.
Or presumably the district would hire its own consultant
Right.
to do its CEQA document, as opposed to that happening and then the city hiring its own consultant to write a subsequent document. So,
Right.
so yes, the main timing consideration, if we get, and parts of these things can run simultaneously. So if the district decides that it does in fact want to go through with this based on the fact that we just told you that staff would support those land use changes, and whatever subsequent discussions we have, at the time that you say, yeah, we want to do this, the city will then send out letters to the tribes and start that 90-day tribal notification period, during which time you're already writing your CEQA document. So that these things don't have to run in series, they can run concurrently. So by the time tribal notification is done, the school district has completed and circulated its CEQA document and takes action to adopt it and decide to move the project forward. Right on the heels of that, the city can then take its action on the general plan and zone change.
Could your
Yeah.
notification be initiated during the escrow period of the time of negotiation through sales? Or
Technically
does it have
speaking,
to be
so
after it's officially owned by the district?
it doesn't have to be after it's owned by the district, but it does have to be after the district submits the change application to the city. So we basically say, hey, tribal, we get a list of tribes from Native American Heritage Commission. And at that point, we say to the chairs of those various tribes, we've received an application from Burton. And it's to change the general plan from this to this. Please respond within 90 days. So however that works on your end, however that works timing wise on your end, we can start that, but really not until you've submitted an application to us. But it can happen during escrow, yes.
Okay. And then just to clarify again, moving forward, if let's say that all gets processed properly, for plan review, that would get submitted through the city and not the county?
Correct.
Okay.
That's what they said. I met with the county. That's exactly what they said, that anything plan wise, with the city.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, and guys, this will of course be spelled out less incoherently than I just threw it all at you in the letter that you get from Oscar. And we can always have subsequent discussions in whatever medium you find appropriate to go over things. So.
Sure. Yeah, and just speaking on behalf of the district and Chris Mono, I think this is an ideal property. When it came up, they were excited about it because it's ideal and it's near obviously it's within their school district area, and it's right next to their school facilities, and there's transportation is a lot more efficient because it's within the city or closer to the city, as opposed to being out. They have property at the airport right now, which is just unfeasible.
Sure.
And we're looking at purchasing eventually both properties.
Okay.
Which is the initial 7 acres. So when I do the CEQA document, I'm gonna do the initial idea is to buy the blue and then eventually buy the red. But if we're gonna do the whole CEQA, I'm just gonna do the whole thing. So that way we already have it done.
That would make sense, yeah.
Makes sense. You're doing it once.
And do you know what you might want to put on the red area?
So the red area is gonna extend either like a pool complex, move the baseball field,
Okay.
move the track, and then put a pool complex, and then additional science wing, CTE wing, some farm area. Because right now the high school doesn't have a ag department, in which the kids are now busing to Tulare for that.
Okay, yeah, and to the extent that when you do your CEQA document, to the extent that you can approximate the sizes and locations of all of those things, that would be really beneficial for you, because then down the road, you may not have to do a whole lot of other environmental review to move forward with that. And when you do get to those things, basically everything you just mentioned would fall under the category of classroom facilities, even the pool and the track and all that stuff. And so that would not be subject to city review, other than for like grading for the purposes of flooding, like street storm drainage. Sorry, I couldn't get that out there.
And fire.
Fire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think the goal for that red area, and you can kind of see it, so that whole block then would be owned by the school district. Well, I say block, but bounded by the blue, the red on the bottom right, and then the school on the top left. But I think the red just gives the district more flexibility to master plan out their high school. Because right now, I think the track, I mean, that could even get reconfigured. So we might just, speaking out loud, there might be some ways that we can make the athletic fields more efficient now that they have more land.
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, with that, in the letter, you'll have the process for the annexation, the zone change, the general plan amendment, and the fees associated.
The application, will you?
Yeah, we'll provide that
Okay,
also.
okay.
Yes.
And I don't know how you were planning on splitting these off, but you are aware that you can just do it via like direct conveyance, correct? Just recordation of deeds. The owner there doesn't need to be a parcel map or anything involved. the owner can just convey the land directly to the district via deed. And the district board just has to accept that conveyance. So there's no mapping processes, what we would call mapping processes involved.
Yeah, and our civil engineer, Wah, is online here. I don't know, Wah, if you had any comments regarding that.
Yeah, Jeff is correct. Being that it's a public agency, the school is, you don't have to do a map per se to split the lot. You could just do it by deed, and it's beneficial to just do a meets and bounds legal description, so you kind of know where your property's at. And when the development occurs, we can get surveyors out there to set corners so that it's easier to locate it later.
Yeah, sorry, well, I didn't realize you were the design professional on the team. So that's, yes, thank you for validating.
Thank you. Moving along with our fire department.
For us, it's really gonna just come down to, again, basically water supply access, complying with the fire code. I'll need, sizes of the buildings. A building that's proposed over 5,000 square feet, it's gonna hold commercial vehicles such as buses, needs to be fire sprinklered. So you're gonna have that component. It'll have to be a monitored sprinkler system.
So the, what do you call it, the bus, the storage area? That, anything over 5,000 square feet,
Anything over 5,000 square feet,
can we do separate?
you can separate them. You'll need to separate them to do them smaller. And you'll have to have distances between them.
20 feet, 30 feet?
Something like that, yeah. With the fire, it's all in the fire code, and so as you design that. But for example, we have modified the fire code here locally with a few modifications, one of them being a commercial project like this requires a maximum hydrant spacing of 300 feet. And that is measured as the hose lays. It's not a straight line or a radius. So we'll take into account if it has to go around parking areas or buildings or, that kind of stuff. But we can, when you start submitting that stuff, we can take a look at that, that kind of stuff. And then basically, I mean, it's gonna be designed for buses, so assuming the fire engines will fit through the radius and all that stuff. So,
Yeah, but bus will pay you.
yeah,
you guys
the
know
bus
what
will
it
fit a
is.
little bit. So, yeah, but yeah, and it's looking into, that stuff, just making sure we have adequate area for turnaround.
Fire hose, do you need to access the back of the building, for example?
So what we need is, and I can just show you real quickly. So, for example, if we were to put a vehicle here or here, we need to be able to get behind the middle of the rear of the building and be within 150 feet as a hose would lay. So like if we staged an engine here, we would have to, this point would have to be within 150 feet of that. So that may require potentially moving your covered storage to give us the ability to get around both sides if it's too long. It does not afford us the distance to get where we need to. Sure. Same thing with this building. For example, if we put an engine here, the measurement to the back side needs to be 150 feet or less.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna ask, so 150, not 300
150 feet or less.
is the line, okay.
I didn't quite understand it when you first said it, but now that you pointed it out now.
Yeah, it's as we lay a hose, so
Yeah.
we would go around that, so.
And I guess another way around that is we push the building closer to the inside of the site and have
Create
required
fire
truck
lanes.
to get
Fire
behind
lane
the
in the back.
buildings. That would help too, without.
Actually, wouldn't hurt us. Because you could almost come in.
Yeah.
For circulation, yeah, 'cause, yeah, we can have the ingress and egress.
Like on this side.
I mean, we're probably more than
And-
20 now.
And the other thing too is, I'm not sure, it doesn't look like you're anticipating a large volume. But, on something like this, we like to maintain 2 points of ingress and egress, and you show them both kind of close together. Typically what we look at is half the diagonal distance, but that's based on the size of the buildings. And so we would have to kind of look at those buildings for the two required entry and exit. But what the entry and exit have to be is they have to be half the diagonal distance away. So if the diagonal distance of the property is 800 feet, your entrances need to be and exits need to be 400 feet.
So similar to how we calculate exits for a building.
Correct. Yes, correct. So, but again, that in the fire code is based on the overall size of the building on the project.
Meaning the number of egress.
Meaning the square footage.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll trigger the secondary point of.
Oh,
Okay. So as we kind of look into that, we'll review that with the fire code and stuff like that. And so, yeah. And the fuel tanks will need, the size. I'm assuming diesel, but I don't know.
Diesel and then, so the diesel will be like 10,000.
Yeah, so we'll need, and again, those will comply with the required codes and everything, so.
And we can talk more, but it may just be that the 2 points of egress are on either ends, and that'll give you a fire lane all the way around the whole perimeter, giving you access behind buildings as well, and then that'll separate the egress.
Well, and that's what we did on a recent project, is they put fire access on the outside,
Yeah.
but kept the two internal.
Oh.
So we had that, and there's nothing that says you can't use those. There just is no stopping, standing, or parking in the fire lane. Sure. Right, so we couldn't have buses staged or parked there at night. So.
Within the 20 feet, so if we're like 30 feet or so, then yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Clayton. Next with, James.
No comment at this time.
Thank you, James. Next with, Javier.
All right, so again, only this maintenance or proposed maintenance facility is gonna be acquired at this time?
Yes, the first round is just gonna be the blue property. And depending on how the sequel goes and the whole application goes, we're looking to purchase the red property also.
Okay. If and when the school district moves forward on the red property, would there be a plan to extend sewer to this maintenance facility?
My plan is to get the sewer, and I gotta talk to the property owner currently.
Mhm.
But my plan is to bring it across their property and then tap into the city sewer right there.
Okay.
Hey Javier, we did the Burton project north of Thurman Avenue there, and the sewer line's real shallow. In fact, there had to be a lift station, I believe, for the Burton's elementary school. And so I think if we were to connect to a city line, we might have to come straight from Elderwood to the east, or Road 222 there, and head into the blue area. But obviously, if the school district doesn't acquire the red area too, then there'll need to be some kind of easement through there for the utility line.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, we're just looking to see if, because besides Thurman and now Elderwood here recently, there aren't really any sewer mains west of here. So just seeing how you might take that into account. But for this project, for the maintenance facility, we'd just be looking at the frontage improvements, so additional street lights, that concrete there. Yeah, I know it's existing, but what we've been doing as our standard is removing and replacing that to comply with their current standard of a landscape parkway and offset sidewalk.
So redo the sidewalk in front of the proposed property?
Right. Right, so it'd just be that blue parcel that's proposed.
That's to align with the intent in front of the high school now. Does that have landscaping?
No, it doesn't. Both schools were developed with this old standard of, it pretty much looks like 10 feet wide in some areas, and then this adjacent sidewalk.
Oh, okay.
What are you asking for then? Or what are you?
Oh,
propose
it's I don't know if we've done a school recently. So it's just a landscaped area along right behind the curb, and the sidewalk gets pushed to be behind that.
Just noticed that looked like a transformer there. I guess that could be an issue if you have landscape there and try to have the sidewalk back there. You might have to go around the back, so that you get into issues with having to provide easements. I know in the past the city has kind of shied away from doing access easements, and you guys prefer to have right of way, so that would probably trigger a right of way acquisition in order to get that access back there, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, but we can work through those details once it gets to that point.
Yeah.
Curious, Javier, is the intent for the landscaping to meet green code requirements, or is it just curious what the source is?
The city's general plan,
Okay,
the streets, and it's all depends on permit valuation. You know, we wouldn't stick this requirement on something that's only like, you know, $20,000, and then we have a disproportionate cost for public improvements.
yeah,
So depending on your permit value, we'd look at the estimated cost of what it'd take to change this. And if it becomes too disproportionate, then we just wait to see when it can be changed.
because I guess I was just wondering, like, thinking outside the box, obviously save costs and not replacing concrete. If we did like landscaping behind that existing sidewalk and then put another sidewalk behind the landscaping, would that meet your intent? Basically have two sidewalks, but not having to redo the front?
No, because the general plan, it envisions street line trees.
Oh,
You know, what's after a number of years, they'll provide a shaded canopy along that. So it's one, aesthetics, and then two, for the comfort of like pedestrians, that they'll be in the shade as they walk in the opposite sidewalk.
but you know what I mean? So if we have like, it's just kind of overkill in terms of sidewalks, but let's just say like we keep that sidewalk in the front. And then we have landscaping, and then we have another sidewalk behind, would all be within the city right of way, I suppose. But then we can still plant those trees and provide the shade for the pedestrians. Would that meet the intent?
What kind of a street would that be, Javier? Redwood?
It's just a local street. So like 60, sorry, 56 or 60, it was most likely laid out for a 60-foot standard. Just because that's the standard the county has.
Would it be relative to the size of the project? It
We
may not be.
already shrunk the size of it because of inflation, so this is gonna put a damper in our plan. It starts adding up. I know this, city lights, I mean, it's part of the deal, but we might not even build nothing.
So we can look at it, Javier, and see if we can come up with some creative ideas too.
Okay. Yeah, so that'd be the extent of engineering's comments, just those frontage improvements. Excuse me.
Thank you, Javier. Bless you. Let me see, Brianna.
I would just need a 3-bin enclosure built for refuse.
A 3-bin enclosure for the refuse.
We didn't put that in the plan, sorry.
Is there a specific location you prefer?
I prefer it to be direct stab. Yeah.
That's where I would think that you have collect most trash, probably not in your open bus storage, but maybe the other building on the north side. Okay, thank you. We can look at that.
Hey, Brianna, can I ask you a quick question? What is the backup requirement from the from the front of the trash enclosure to the back for clearance, just in case it's in an area where there's not a lot of backup space?
We can send you the specs on that.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Next was Robert.
So backflow devices are required on all water services and fire suppression systems. We're gonna need a separate meter and backflow device for all landscaping. This allows the customer only to be billed for wastewater entering the sewer system, and not the entire consumption of water. Those are all my comments.
Thank you, Robert. Next was Joe.
No comments from the street department.
Thank you. And that is all from staff. Is there any additional questions from the applicant?
I'll see when we get the letter.
Letter normally takes about 2 to 3 weeks after today's meeting, which will outline all the departments' comments, conditions, and process to move forward.
Anticipated impact fees?
Javier, would you be able to answer that?
Do you have, if you can provide us what the approximate square footage is, we can give you a rough idea.
You're on there.
On the last one?
If you go.
Next sheet.
Going.
Is there another sheet?
You should have.
Maybe we didn't include the floor plans. I thought we did. Here you go.
Okay. Yeah, so if you could send that over, we can give you a rough idea of those.
Yeah, so that way we have it, cause like I said, we have a budget.
Mhm.
And I gotta kind of figure out what. How much money it's gonna cost us, and this will be a good cost to put in there, so that we know what's coming.
Right.
So one thing just came up that it looks like the property is also under a Williamson Act contract. I
Yes,
don't know if you guys were aware of that, and that would have to be canceled before the school could be built, which again, there's a process for that. That would have to be that would actually have to be canceled through Tulare County. But that could also all occur concurrently with anything else. In fact, that can occur entirely separately of anything else. But yeah, that would definitely, the owner would need to file a notice of non-renewal with Tulare County and have that recorded. And then there would be and this might increase cost to the district kind of substantially. Unfortunately, this amount just went down, but when you cancel a contract, there's a 6.5%. I'm sorry, there's a 6% penalty on the fair market value of the land that needs to be paid to the county in order to cancel that. Don't quote me on the number. It used to be 12.5%, and it just went down in 2023. It might be, it's probably 6.25% now. I think they cut it in half, so.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think we were advised just recently regarding that as well from our
Okay.
end. Okay, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you have another agenda item. Can you just really quickly describe Williamson Act, the history behind that and what that means to cancel it?
Yeah, so the Williamson Act was put in place back in the 60s to help preserve ag land that was at risk of conversion to urban uses. And essentially what happens is the property owners enter into a contract with the county. It's usually with the county, under which the property is not appraised or assessed as developable, but as ag land. And in addition, they receive greatly reduced property taxes. And in return, it can't be used for anything other than agricultural uses or a very narrow band of related uses to agriculture. And that contract is for 10 years and it self-renews annually. So it's basically always good for 9 to 10 years.
So
And-
initiated, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and so the way to get out of it is the owner has to file a notice of non-renewal, and what that does is prevent, and technically the county could file a non-renewal also, so either party to the contract can do it. And what that means is that it stops automatically renewing every year. So then it counts down, and so between 9 to 10 years later, it's no longer under contract. But you also have the option of canceling the contract prior to it running out under non-renewal. And if that's the case, you still file the notice of non-renewal. And then the county, the Board of Supervisors can make special findings that basically say that it's better to cancel the contract and then keep it in place. Oh, and by the way, now we're going to reappraise the land, and the assessor will set a new tax for it that will be based on its fair market value. And historically, it was a 12% penalty. I'm sorry, I keep saying that wrong. It was a 12.5% penalty. And even in 3, that was cut in half to 6.25%. So you can either wait 9 to 10 years after non-renewing for it to just disappear with no penalty, or you can non-renew and then pay that penalty to the county, and it comes out of contract immediately.
Do you have records of when that act was established for this property?
I don't. I just happened to be looking at the 22 to 23 tax roll for properties under Williamson Act, and it shows that it was under contract.
Okay.
That information is maintained by the county.
Sure.
So I don't have access to that, but I mean, we could get it, or it'd probably be easier for us to ask the county for it, since we would know who to talk to. But
No worries, and we can find that out as well. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
you're welcome.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Again,
you.
thank you for the
you,
application,
everybody.
and we'll provide these comments in 2 to 3 weeks time frame.
Sounds good. Yes, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
With the second item on the agenda, we have PRC 2023-044. In which the applicant is proposing a multifamily residential development project consisting of a total of 4 units, 2 duplexes for a total of 4 units. Project is proposed on North G Street on APN 247160030. The property is zoned RM2, which is medium density residential, and it also has a general plan land use of medium density residential. As far as the location of the buildings, that does meet the minimum setbacks. Something that I do see is that the parking area visible from the street exceeds 30%. So we're gonna have to try to adjust that a little bit. To be at 30% or less. Also, any buildings fronting G Street has to be orientated directly adjacent to the street and present a pedestrian scaled entry with residential character. Also, this property has a maximum of 15 units per dwelling per net acre. It may have potential to add more units if the property owner or developer would proceed with adding more units on the property. Parking is flexible here, since there are latest state laws that if there are transit facilities within half a mile of the development, you could have a reduction in parking. The landscaping area complying with chapter 303. Making sure that we provide private open space and also common open space for the development. The northern property line, the project would require to provide a wall. Since the northern property use is a commercial use. That is pretty much our comment from planning. Next, we'll move along with our fire department with Clinton.
For us, it's based on the proposal, it'd be a 13D sprinkler system, an FPA 13D. If they propose more units and increase it beyond 2, it'll go to a 13R system. I see that they show the area for the fire department turnaround, so just need to make sure that that conforms with Appendix D of the fire code. And then basically just the placement of the fire hydrants. And if they do go to or consider adding more units beyond a duplex, they'll kick in the requirement for a fire department connection. And so we'll be looking for that location to be within 50 feet of a functioning fire hydrant. So, but that's all stuff we can work out in the plan submittal.
Thank you, Taylor. Next, with our building department with James.
I mean, no comment at this time. They are duplexes. They're not a triplex, so the path to travel to the trash enclosure would not be required.
Thank you, James. Next was Javier in our engineering division.
Just would be looking, as this parcel develops for the frontage improvements. Like the previous item, we'll be looking at offset sidewalk with the landscape strip. Hopefully those poles still remain in a good alignment so that the improvements can be built around them. And then street lights. And there'll be some on-site retainage required for MS4 requirements. Like, and that can be achieved through either landscape swales, pervious concrete, or similar. But water and sewer are there, so it's just going to be extending those services to it. Otherwise, that's all engineering has.
Thank you. Next was Brianna.
You have the 3-bin enclosure for the trash, but I'm just wondering if we could maybe move that to another location so it's a little bit more of a direct stab and my guys aren't blocking or backing up into the street. Yeah, maybe somewhere over on that corner in that bulb.
Thank you, Brianna. Next with Robert.
Backflow devices are also required on all water services, fire suppression system, if need be. Separate meter and backflow device required for all landscaping. Again, this is used to bill wastewater entering the sewer system. Those are all the comments.
Thank you, Robert. Next with Joe.
No comment.
Thank you. Looks like that's all comments from staff. Is there any questions from the applicant?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, hello, Kelsey.
Hi. Okay, so I have a question regarding the reduction in parking due to the transit facility location.
Yeah.
What is that number? What is that factor? How can it be reduced?
The local jurisdictions can require for multifamily developments to meet our minimum required parking for the development. It's gonna be upon the developer if they would like to provide some type of parking for the project.
Okay.
Of course, it could be wise to provide something, but it's gonna be upon the developer to make that decision.
Okay.
And just for the conversation, the transit facilities are here on Henderson,
Right.
quite a few. And are within a half a mile of the project.
Chris?
Going back to, if I understood this correctly, the 30% visibility of the parking,
Correct.
is that, explain that to me.
So under section 201.04B1, under parking and garage frontage limitation, the total frontage of parking areas visible from the street, which includes open parking, carports, and garages shall not exceed 30% of that lot frontage. So
How
here
far back do we have to go?
as the way the code is worded, it's whatever is visible from the street. So we got
So-
here about 47 feet. Divide that by, I think the lot is 133 feet wide, gets you about 35%.
So at what point do we not see parking from the street?
If you have a building that's, you could put a building here. For example, you could rotate this building this way, have a driveway and provide parking in the back, and it's no longer visible. The only thing that would be visible would be the driveway. That could be a solution there to try to achieve that. Is possibly rotating this building this way and have the driveway and parking behind it, possibly. Or again, you could probably stack this building here next to each other and provide parking in the rear of both buildings. And that could possibly open up the development for more units.
Can the parking area not be screened off? Does that not apply here?
You could probably screen it with some kind of hedge or something like that that prevents it from being visible. Or fencing.
Okay. And I guess we're still a little unclear about how much parking can be reduced.
With the transit location in mind, I still don't understand how much we can reduce.
I believe Oscar is saying that this, if you choose to, you can have no parking because of the proximity of the transit station.
Oh,
Okay,
that's a nice way of saying that.
so we would just need site circulation then to comply with fire, with engineering, with whatever else, and we can greatly increase the density of buildings on this property.
Correct, not to exceed 15 per net acre.
Yeah, well, within allowable, and then we also that would eliminate the frontage of the parking situation that we have.
Correct.
Possibly, correct?
Okay, okay, that clarifies a lot.
Thank you.
And
Any
you said
additional
about,
questions?
you said
Go
about
ahead.
2 to 3 weeks until we get these?
Yes,
Okay.
any additional questions from the applicant or agent?
Not for me.
Sounds
We're good.
good. With that, we're gonna go ahead and end today's project review committee meeting at 2:33 PM. I would like to thank everybody for joining us today.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and if you guys have additional questions on that, you can of course just reach out directly to us.
Okay,
Perfect. Thank you.
right, thanks.
Thank you.